Welcome to this Andor video. We pick up after last week's heartbreaking escape that left, at least we know, just Melshi and Andor, the sole survivors of the prison escape. The plot is hotting up, and that's not just the feel of a space lightsaber blowing up a TIE fighter. All roads are seemingly leading to Ferrix, with every one of our players seemingly now focusing or heading to Ferrix. With Marvin now dead, a huge funeral will be taking place. It's not usually allowed on this planet, but Daedra hopes that it will lead to Andor coming out of hiding and running directly into the trap the ISB are springing, will be monitoring everyone at the funeral. Andor, however, at this time has no clue she's actually dead and won't find out until episode's end. He is striving to survive with Melshi as his storyline progresses rather fast compared to the pacing for the rest of the season thus far. It's just like he and Melshi have survived, and I would have liked to seen the pair bond a bit more as they try to survive out there in the wastes of the planet. Considering we saw the bond we have in Rogue One, maybe that will be explored in Season 2. But it's the finale next week, so things do have to kick into fifth gear as we drive up on the M25. The pair come across a quad jumper, which we saw Rey and Finn run to, only for it to blow up, and they took the garbage there in Force Awakens. I'm also pretty sure the aliens who we saw capture them are called Krolutes, a race we also saw in Force Awakens, and was the race of the character that Simon Pegg played in that movie, the one who handed out the portions to Rey. Luckily, they are captured, and they say it wasn't them. We learn that the Empire has been stealing the water on this planet. So while we see the prison, we also see the effect that the Empire have had on this planet, and it's not a good one, as they've been taking all the water to work on whatever they were working on. And we simply see our boy Andor return to Space Miami, pick up his cash and dip. Now, the early days of Melshi joining the Resistance is born, as he says someone needs to know what's going on, and he needs to tell the world what was happening in that prison. Now, considering that Mon Mothma is a bleeding heart liberal, I do wonder if he will take his story to her, and she will try and expand on that in the Senate. Now, we don't know for certain if they were the only two who survived, but we know Andor will be returning to Ferrix, as later in the episode he tries to get a message to his mother, but he learns she's now sadly passed away. Another person heading to Ferrix is Syril, and I'm growing low-key kind of bored of this storyline. It just feels really out of place when everything else is such top-tier, peak Star Wars or peak TV. We learn, or he learns from Trevor from EastEnders, that Andor's mother's died and he will be escaping his overbearing mother and dips in the middle of the night. Now, while the parties descend upon Ferrix, we have more parties there watching as Sintra is on the planet, and Vel is also making her way there. Vel did try to mug off Luthen's assistant by saying, what has she done recently? Well, she's always working and spinning the plates of the early rebellion, and I wouldn't mess with her because she's the one who put out the hit on Andor, and Vel could be expendable. Sintra is also unknowingly with an ASB agent who was the guy who was present for Syril's interrogation and was seen briefly at the end of last episode. Meanwhile, Mon Mothma has somewhat of a slower episode here, but we see her daughter wrapped up in tradition, and it's pretty much hinted that her daughter will be married off as a young bride, a payoff from last episode. It's tragic and beautifully acted how her daughter is being sold off, and we see the hurt in Mon's eyes, but she did this to save the galaxy. We also have the awkward moment where she says to Vel that Aldhani changed everything, and that she's at risk here. She's been easily funding the rebellion for quite some time here, but she must have known that things would escalate at some point if they want to overthrow the evil Emperor. We return to Saw as Luthen informs him that the Krieger job is a poison chalice and is a trap that is being allowed to go ahead so they don't lose the source inside the ISB. I loved how Luthen got one up on him. The paranoid Saw we saw in Rogue One was shown in his early stages here, and he says that what if he was going into the trap? The difference here is that Saw knows Luthen by face and Krieger does not, as the contact was made via proxies and such. Now, Bix has been pressured and told, asked who she sent Andor off with. Well, he or she could say that it was actually Anto Krieger exonerating Luthen. I'm interested to see where that thread goes next. He shows how savage he is for the Resistance, and even more hardcore than Saw, who was exiled from the Resistance for being and taking things far too far. Luthen may be returning to Ferrix as well, as we get a well-written and well-acted, coded conversation with him and his second-in-command, but he's almost captured on a routine stop. His ship is fake coded from Alderaan, but he hasn't actually been picked up for being guilty. It's just there's been some pirates in the area, and the Imperials want to use him as practice and flex their muscles. And we love seeing just how horrible these Imperials are in the everyday. The whole scene is incredibly tense and expertly shot and edited. It's a far cry from the Last Jedi spaceship-to-ship discussion. But this is it for this episode. I absolutely adored it once again, and I will be back next week for the finale. So if you enjoyed it, please do drop a like down below and subscribe with notifications on if you want more from us. I'll see you soon, and goodbye.